All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our November 19th, 2021 Directors Call. Glad to have you on board with us today. We have a agenda sharing on screen for us, and I'll turn it over to Vic Jarvis before then, but just want to do a quick housekeeping reminder that if you've not done so already, please drop into the chat your name and school or organization. This is how we take attendance. And then last but not least, when you're not speaking, and we would encourage you to speak up during these calls, obviously, but if you're not speaking, if you put yourself on mute, just kind of helps with some of that background noise. So thank you for that. And I'll turn it over to Vic.
Morning, everyone. Hopefully you guys got your programs up and running and things are going smoothly. Although we are aware of the staffing shortage that everyone is working through. Just like to share a little tip with you about hiring. There's nothing said in that we require you to have somebody that works, 5 days a week. You may be able to get some people that say, oh, I can only come in on Wednesdays and Fridays. So, you could potentially hire folks. You might have to have a larger staff, but this staff doesn't work for the whole 5 days. They might come in when they can. And this way you can bridge those gaps. It's a little more paperwork for you because, everybody's got to fill out those forms and you got to do the background checks and everything, but it's a way to keep the programs going. And it's kind of out of the box. And I actually had some experience back 40 years ago when I had a video store, and I had hired a lot of teenagers because they were my best customers, and they didn't want to, very few of them wanted to work every day. And so they could pick what days they wanted. I did like them to come in on Saturday because that was our busiest day. And, it worked out well. I always had somebody work to fill in and do the job. So we encourage you to think outside of the box to, keep these programs going and give kids the services that they deserve. All right, let's talk about the financials. Right now, people are putting their claims into CASA. And I don't know if it's, some residual effect from the pandemic, but it seems like it's more difficult to get the claims in there correctly. I'm seeing a lot of things where the wrong documents are uploaded. And we really only require the 2 documents for payment, and that is the claim spreadsheet, number 1. And you have to have your attendance update in there. And then number 2 is your general ledger. Excuse me?
Yeah, I think we just have somebody who just joined and didn't quite mute themselves yet, Vic. So you're
okay.
Good.
All right.
Continue.
So anyway, if you can check those things, make sure that you've got the attendance numbers before you send it into your person that's uploading it into CASA. And then another issue is that the totals on your claim spreadsheet need to match the total that's in CASA. If there's a problem, then I can't approve it until we get those things corrected. So that's one of the things that I want you to kind of be aware of, because we're going to be using CASA now and in the future. So it's important that, you get used to what's needs to go up there. So, okay. And the second one is I've got an update about fees. What's unusual is last month I had a monitoring call with the feds, and this wasn't just for Iowa. This is across the country that they're talking about this with all the states. They had questions about charging fees. And right now they're getting ready to release the new guidance. The last time they had guidance was 2003, and in their fees were allowed just the way that it's being set up, I believe that they're going to prohibit fees in the future from this program. So I've been pretty accurate with my predictions in the past, for what it's worth, giving you a little advance warning here. Okay. So let's move down to the program updates.
Yeah, Vic, do you want me to kind of start and you can add
Sure.
into the conversation here, or do you want to take this first one?
Now you can go ahead and talk, and then I'll chime in.
Awesome, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing that we wanted to just update you on regarding programming this morning is that the collaborative work between the Iowa Department of Education and the Iowa After School Alliance is going to change. We have done a reevaluation of that work and that contract, specifically our scope of work. And you'll be seeing that, again, just a few things are going to be changing as we continue to progress along with this collaboration, with this partnership. I do want to give you just a quick example of what this will be is, for example, our best practice webinars. Right now, we hold those every single month on the fourth Tuesday of the month. And, we love it when you guys join us. Moving forward, we're actually going to make these quarterly meetings. So we're trying to streamline some efficiencies. We're trying to maybe have a better use of staff time or personnel time. In the short term, though, if you have any needs, you need support, you have questions, things like that, obviously reach out to Vic. You can also reach out to me. And I'm happy to make connections for you as best I can. Vic, what would you add to that kind of summary?
Well, among some of the changes is the department wants to eliminate best practice visits that the Alliance does. And they want to change the way that I do site visits. And so this is going to be one, big change for the future. And we're just going to have to roll with it. I mean, it's not something that I suggested. So, when you get new people at the top, things sometimes change when you're down at the bottom. So anyway, we're going to keep you updated on some of these things as much as we can. That's one good reason for having these calls.
Yeah. The other thing I would just generally say is if there is a larger change to the way that the department and the Iowa After School Alliance collaborates together, we'll be sure to include some type of a notification or training mechanism or something of that nature so that you guys feel better supported in the work that you're doing for 21st Century. So I will pause just to see if anybody has any questions about that kind of general statement here. And also welcome the people who just came into the call. Please put your name and school or site into the chat. That's the way we're taking attendance today. So if you've just joined us, please go ahead and do that. And again, I'll pause for some questions. Okay. So you guys know us well enough to know that you can reach out to us at any time, email, my cell phone is attached. I think everybody in the state has my cell phone at this point. So go ahead and reach out. And again, we'll make those connections for you. So next on our program update is the new APR open dates. I want to remind people that your spring 2021 data is due to be entered into the APR system with a December 15th deadline. That'll be here before we know it. So you should be working on getting that data collected, getting it entered. If you have questions about that, reach out to Vic. I'm happy to hop on a call with you as well. As a former program manager, I remember the APR system pretty well and might be able to help with the guidance connected to that. But again, remember that December 15th is your APR due date for that.
Yeah, let me just say too that the APR is very important to our program, and we cannot give you an extension. Now, we are very generous with local evaluations. If you need extra time, that's a piece of cake, because that's something that we're collecting. But this is a federal system, so you need to get that stuff in, and I would suggest that you work on it, ASAP. Hopefully you've already got it done and you've checked it off. Because if you have some problems, you've got to get a hold of us, and what if we're taking the day off when you need help? So give yourself some time in case there is an issue with getting this in. Now, if you don't put in your APR, that's going to be a non-compliance item. Just so you know, that's how important this is.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, reach out if you need assistance with that. To Vic's point, sooner rather than later might be a good idea. And again, let us know if you have any questions. Next, under program updates, is work connected to our
Hi,
committees.
Crystal. I was trying to get unmuted. I do have a very quick question.
Yeah, Heidi, go ahead.
Oh, you know what? Maybe it's down farther in the agenda. I'm going to shut up.
Okay, we'll come back to you if you still have it then, okay? So, Heidi, you crack me up. Committee updates for you today. So I think it was maybe 2 months ago at our directors meeting, we had mentioned that the Communication Sustainability and Partnerships Committee, and I think you can all probably see why we decided to make that a little bit of a short acronym there, has developed a Google form to be able to collect some of the information from the other various committees to share out, not just at these directors calls, but then across the entire network. Just a quick update on where we're at with that. I've been working with Elena Zalar from Council Bluffs, who is the chair of that committee. She and the others on the committee feel like it's in a good place. So we'll be reconvening the committee chairs to get their input, and then they'll go ahead and either approve or edit, and we'll take it out to their committees and make sure that we have that line of communication open. We've also been discussing the concept of having a centralized Google Doc in which we can share some of those best practices, tips, techniques, tricks, things of that nature. The Family Engagement Committee is actually going to be working on one of those. So more to come on these types of information sharing, tips, tricks sharing, things of that nature. But I think there's some really good things happening. I do think that when we start breaking down some of these silos, we'll be able to better talk about or discuss what we also brought up at last month's call, which is that committee redesign. Right now, we have the 5 committees, with the 6th being the new grantee staff transition committee, which counts but doesn't count, I guess is what I would say. We are kind of in the process of evaluating if we need all 5. Do we want to consider combining some of the work? Because I think there could be arguments made that a lot of the work that the committees do overlaps with other committees in some way, shape, or form, which is actually a very good thing. But again, if we can streamline that process, I think that's something that we'll be exploring. So I think some of these networking opportunities, communication opportunities, and things like that will help to have us better think through how, when, and where we want to consider a committee redesign. Anybody have any questions about, again, either breaking down those barriers to communication or thinking about redesign at this moment? Okay, the final thing that I would say is that I will be getting ready to send out the next 6 months of committee invites, meeting notices, things of that nature. So we'll be sending January through June. That'll be coming in December. If you have had staff changes that you would like to share with me, or that will be happening if somebody's leaving your organization in January or something like that, please just reach out to me through email and let me know who should be on that committee, or if I have a correct email or an incorrect email or something of that nature, please let me know. We do these in 6 month chunks because, again, we know that in out of school time, in that world, we do have some staff transition and such. So just try to make it so we don't get a ton of bounce backs when we send out an email. Next on our list is a summary of the professional development template that you all submitted back in September. Excuse me. Thank you for those who were very timely with that report. I appreciate that. I do have the report primarily ready to go, but we'll be discussing it with the Professional Development Committee first to think about how they want to approach the data, next steps, and so on and so forth. And then we'll be making a full report to the directors at our January call time. So again, just rest assured that the information that we request from you is being used. It's how we design our best practice webinars, how we design our spring and summer workshops, and how we design our impact conference or any other type of professional development offerings that will be moving forward in the future. Okay, local evaluation. Vic, do you want to jump in here with some information regarding that?
Yeah. Right now, the evaluations will be coming due at the end of this month. However, it's not a problem if you need an extension because we don't start reviewing them until December. So, you know, it's December, January, February is when we're doing most of the work. And if you need some extra time, that's not a problem because we can't do them all at once. So just keep that in mind. You just need to send me an email. And we will, you know, give you, right now it's, if you request an extension now, you'll get it until the first week of January because of the Christmas holiday.
Okay. I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but I was CC'd on several emails asking for an extension. I just want to check in with people on the call today. Did Vic reply to your extension? Because if not, let's maybe go ahead and see if we can handle that right now. Hold on, we got something in the chat here. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. So just a couple of other things regarding local evaluation. If you want to watch that webinar, you can find that here on the grant info page of our 21st Century site. Go ahead and scroll down. It's mostly towards the bottom, so you can go ahead and do that. Just that reminder that you're reporting on data from summer of 2020 through the 2020-2021 school year, or is a year behind. So go ahead and do that. And then again, that fun reminder that the link that you provided to us that says where your local evaluation sits should have not only this year's evaluation, but it should also have your past evaluations as well. So you just maybe want to double check a couple of those things. Okay, Nikki has a question, Vic. She'd like to know.
Oh, you don't need to give me specifics, just ask me for an extension. You know, this is pretty straightforward. We cannot do them all at once anyway, so you know, we're happy to give you a little extra time.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions about local evaluation?
Well, here's something I would like to remind folks on is we've got that document about FERPA that also has all the new GEPRA measures. That's something you should give out to your data person and let them start working on building those reports where they're going to get that new information for you. A lot of them, I think there's 5 GEPRA measures and 4 of them are pulls from your data person. So that's going to be very helpful to let them know as much in advance as possible what you need from them.
Yes. Okay, the last thing we have under program updates is in regards to our annual survey. It's that time of year again where this is a document that's due. So in addition to your local evaluation, in addition to your APR data, we do ask that you complete this annual survey. Again, this is for the 2020-2021 school year. So if you had funded programming during that year, you will be asked to complete the survey. So we have the SurveyMonkey link here. I will go ahead and grab this and put it into the chat. I'll also send this out through email when we are done. But this document will be due. Oh, it didn't exactly paste correctly, but that's okay. You guys get the gist. This document will be due January 21st. And I've also put in the chat, and we'll be sending out through email as well, a PDF of what the entire survey looks like. So you can do some penciling out of your thoughts or gathering some of your numbers prior to hopping into that SurveyMonkey link and completing that data. If you have any questions about the survey, you run into any problems or anything like that, don't hesitate to reach out to me for the logistical support of it. If you have questions about content, please reach out to Vic. Any questions about the annual survey? Okay, Vic, I think we're ready for RFA updates.
Wonderful. All right, we extended the letter of intent because last week I was out a couple of days. And so, if somebody had a question, I was, out of state, and, the new rule is we can't check our email when we're out of state. So we gave everyone an extra week just in case somebody had a question and they couldn't get a hold of me. And I also leave my DE phone behind now when I'm off for a couple of days. So there's a few things that are changing, but we're going to do our best to try to minimize the impact on you. So everything's online this time, and keep in mind, it's not going to save. You're going to have to, get everything ready and put it in on one shot. But it should be a little bit streamlined from in the past. You don't have to mail anything into the DE anymore, but you do have to get it all online. And some of those things that require, signatures like assurances and MOUs, those will be uploaded into the new system. And hopefully you guys will say, wow, this is just great. And I encourage all of you to apply for funding.
Yeah, thank you, Vic. So the letter of intent SurveyMonkey link will be open until 5 o'clock this afternoon. If you want to go ahead and put in a letter of intent, that would be a great thing. Here is the link to the application itself. If you would like to view a technical assistance recording, you can find that here. And again, that's double on here for some reason. I don't know what I was thinking when I put together the agenda, but again, if you have questions about the RFA itself, please reach out to Vic. If you have questions about the platform or use of the online SurveyMonkey or the online platform, please reach out to me. Going to move on to an update from the Iowa After School Alliance. So in the last 2 months in our newsletter, we've indicated that we'd like to have a discussion about the staffing shortages that have been a part of these discussions and many other meetings that we've participated in. It's come to our attention that people are kind of getting creative in the way that they're solving their staffing problems. So I think there's a couple of things that we would like to consider here. First and foremost, I don't know if we need to have a webinar, a discussion, or whatever. So I'm kind of looking to this group for you to tell us, should we host something as the Alliance? And then secondly, I do have a little bit of information that I would like to share from you from a webinar that I attended regarding jobs outlooks. So okay, thank you for answering the question in the chat. So just if you don't mind, drop in the chat or unmute and share with me, do you feel like the Iowa After School Alliance should be hosting some type of a platform in which to have a discussion regarding staffing shortages? Give me your thoughts and opinions, please. Or do you feel it's asked and answered?
Crystal, can I chime in really quick? This is Shani from Davenport.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know back in September and August, and when we talked at the fall conference, I think everyone was really struggling with staff. What I've noticed specifically, probably in the last 3 to 4 weeks, is things have started to get better. For the first time in several months, I had 4 people apply in one day. So in terms of moving forward, I'm not sure what's happening, and maybe you can shed some light based on the jobs outlook that you mentioned you want to share. But for us, knock on wood, things have, we're finally slowly starting to fill the positions and start to stabilize a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for that, Shani. That's kind of the message that we're starting to get. So we don't want to leave people hanging if they have a need. And yes, Barb, your comment here is, it's right on the money, right? It's difficult to discuss because each site is different. They don't have as many people applying as compared to a larger city. Yeah, it's just kind of an interesting thing. So again, the Iowa After School Alliance doesn't want to leave people hanging if you are really counting on this presentation to kind of get some ideas to move forward. But if it's asked and answered, we also want to value your time. So if you'd like to reach out to me privately, I'm very open to that. Again, I have a couple of things that I'd like to share with you. This was from a webinar that was hosted by the Business Record. It was a Jobs Outlook webinar. And if you were on the Family Engagement Committee call the other day, you kind of heard me say some of these things. One of the things that they really kind of drove home for us was that we're working in a climate right now in which parents, youth, and aging Iowans are not in the workforce the way they previously had been. And there's, of course, a lot of reasons for that, right? So sometimes the pandemic, it kind of encouraged or maybe even forced people to think about early retirement. You have families or parents who are not wanting their children to be working in a public service, youth-driven industry like fast food or something like that because of the potential exposure to health concerns. And then you had parents who had to readjust their work schedule or their work life to accommodate to support their kids when they were home from school. So ultimately what this has done is it's really put the state of Iowa into a situation where we're seeing a labor shortage of about 60 to 70%, somewhere around in there. They also went a step further and they asked employees returning to work how they felt specifically about social distancing and how they felt specifically about masks. And 75% of employees returning to the office said that they wanted social distancing, and 65% said that they wanted themselves and or their coworkers to wear masks. So I think right out of the gate, that might be something that we want to consider as you're thinking about staffing your teams, is how you can support and or encourage those types of health concerning concepts as they arise. The other kind of key message that was taken from this webinar was that really it all comes down to being competitive, right? And competitiveness can be thought of in a couple of different ways. The first way is through pay. And I know I've been on several calls, I've had several conversations with each of you throughout the course of these last couple of months. And it's really hard to compete with a Casey's who is offering a $300 sign-on bonus, or a retail store or something like that that's offering a $1,000 sign-on bonus, compared to the type of work and or type of pay that you guys are able to do in your out-of-school time programs. Now, some of you have been very creative in the way that you've addressed that. Some of you have been even authorized to offer sign-on bonuses using various funding streams and so on and so forth. So I think there's probably some ways around that. But if your hands are tied from a financial perspective, the other way they talked about being competitive was to think about making yourself stand out as a quality employer. And two ways specifically that they talked about that could be achieved is thinking about that career pathways approach, and then thinking about the culture of your workplace. So the career pathways made a lot of sense to me, especially as I was thinking, hold on here, we got somebody who needs to mute. Thank you. The career pathways made a lot of sense to me because, again, when people are working in your program, many of them are often working up or working towards another career education goal. If you, as an out-of-school time program site, can position your approach to employability in thinking about what is that next step, what is that next level, how can their stop in their journey at your out-of-school time program take them to that next level, then you're going to be able to position yourself to have better recruitment. The secondary concept then was culture. And the discussion that came from this is culture means a lot of different things, of course, so workplace culture, when I'm talking about workplace culture, really what I'm talking about is highlighting your program assets, highlighting your community's assets, thinking about flexibility, and thinking about schedules. You heard Vic say at the beginning of the call that this kind of gig work mentality is something that's very prevalent right now. So hiring a person for a short-term amount of time to work on a very specific project for a very specific number of days, that is something that a lot of people who are re-entering the workforce are really looking forward to. If you can incorporate that into your model, you might find some success with staffing. Any thoughts or comments about this? And I see that there's been lots of things happening in the chat here too. So, but if you have immediate thoughts, please unmute and share.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in now. 21st Century Funds cannot be used for a sign-on bonus. You can, however, increase what you pay per hour with 21st Century Funds. Another thing that to remind everyone is we do not have to hire certified teachers. You can hire someone, anyone really that's you feel is qualified. And a lot of the problems may be stemming from policies because of COVID that prohibited anyone but existing district staff to come into the buildings. Could be your HR has some requirements for hiring that you need to work with them to get over these hurdles. But the 21st century allows volunteers. You can bring in, seniors, high school kids, college kids. We're pretty wide open in terms of people that can come in because we realize that kids need to have a diversity of adult role models in these programs. So, there's a lot of flexibility from the program side, but you may have to work on district rules in order to get the people you need. So just throwing that out there for you. And hopefully you'll be able to get past this.
Yeah, thank you for that. Does anybody else want to immediately chime in with some thoughts by unmuting? I do want to call attention to a couple of things in the chat. So Nikki in Council Bluffs says, they're a larger district, they're struggling to staff their 10 sites, not fully staffed. The 5 full-time staff, including herself, are getting pretty burnt out, but they're maintaining. So I do think that the other aspect that comes into this play is, again, that whole concept of self-care. And this is something that I honestly don't do very well with. I feel like I am cheating somebody if I take a day for myself or something, but I think we all need to try to work better for that. Shani, I'm going to call you out because you had made a comment, excuse me, on the Family Engagement Committee the other day about a tactic that you guys use to kind of help staff re-energize and things like that. The kind of like cover a day, or I'm not sure what you
Oh,
called it,
yes.
but
So, well, besides the chocolate, that was one major thing. I've given out more chocolate this year than I ever have. But one thing that we have really worked hard on doing to acknowledge the fact that our staff are absolutely exhausted, and we too, with the 16 sites we have, and our full-time staff, and then all of the part-time, we know everyone's drained. But what I've started to do with our full-time, myself included, is if on a day that we're staffed, we acknowledge and know which of our staff are to that point, we give them the day off and we go cover. So if we strategically do a calendar out for a month at a time, knowing who's on and who's off. And on the days that we know, especially our staff that are already full-time school district staff, and they're coming into program to work another 3 or 4 hours, we'll approach them and say, you know what, we know you're exhausted. Would you like the day off? And first they're shocked and they're like, is this a trick? And then they're like, oh my gosh, yes. And it seems is that it's as simple as that one day, to give them that afternoon, they come back fully, it just fills their emotional bank account a little bit and shows how much we value them. So it's one thing that's really started to work for us, to help stabilize and show that we appreciate them so much.
yeah, thank you for sharing that again. Does
Oh, no problem.
anybody else have any tips or tactics that you've tried to assist with some of this to prevent burnout, staff recruitment, just anything related to that whole staffing conundrum?
This is Lynn in Storm Lake. One of the things that I've done in the past couple weeks is I've kind of reorganized the way that our schedule works so that I can make sure that those who work full-time during the day and stay after school, that they get out of the building earlier than maybe my college students who work. And that's been real helpful. They're usually out about 45 minutes before program's done. And it's along the lines of when our kids are starting to get picked up. And so our numbers are slowing down. So we're doing more large group activities at the end of the day versus the small group activities at the beginning of our afternoon.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. That's very helpful to hear too. Any other thoughts? Okay. So again, I think I'm going to ask everybody to put in the chat, put the word yes if you think the Iowa After School Alliance should host some type of a formal discussion about staffing. Put the word no if you think this is kind of an asked and answered. So if everybody could do that, that would be great. And while we're doing that, I also want to call out a couple other messages that came out of the chat. So this is from Jenna in Sioux City. She says staffing's starting to get better. She's a little concerned though that they're not going to hit their grant attendance requirements because they still don't have enough staff to fulfill the need. So Vic, do you have some guidance? Can you make comments?
I already responded.
Okay, but can you say it verbally so that everybody can hear as well?
Well, I no longer have the flexibility that I had in the past on some of these things. So, I know that last year we were very forgiving because of the pandemic. However, this year, I would advise everyone to do their best. However, I'm going to make the case because of the staffing shortages that this, created a problem. So I can't say definitively.
Okay. All right. Jenna, do you have any follow-up that you want to drop into the chat or unmute with?
No, not necessarily. It was just a question that I had, and yeah, Vic had responded to me in the chat. So I don't necessarily know that I have anything for that, other than, Vic will see what they're thinking because of staffing. I would like to add that I don't know how many programs in after school are licensed by DHS right now. But you're probably all aware that, there's kind of money coming down the pipeline being filtered through DHS, and they had the big child care task force to come up with some recommendations for how they felt like some of those dollars should be spent. And now they're putting some into action, and then they're creating smaller subgroups to kind of really dig in to the recommendations to see what they want to do. And I was asked to sit on one of those committees specifically to represent school age. Because, a lot of times when you think of childcare, a lot of people think, birth to age 5, and school age kind of gets dropped off. And so I thought that, one, that was really awesome that they are thinking of us to include us in these recommendations, but also I wanted to let the group know, even if you're not licensed at this point, I want to be a voice at the table for everybody. And so if there are any things that you can think of with DHS regulations, barriers that come into that, reach out to me, email me, or give me a phone call, so that I can make sure that I'm giving them really good, valid input from all of us.
Jenna, thanks so much for that. I can't think of a better voice at that table. You'll do a great job there.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, maybe drop your email and your phone into the chat just so that people can grab that if they have those thoughts or ideas.
Will do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna. And by the way, you can be using DHS funding and 21st Century. There's not a conflict there. So I would encourage those of you to explore it. And for our professional development, you can earn those DHS education credits. So we have a good collaborative relationship with DHS, and that's another source of funding for your programs. Again, and then a third one is the Department of Agriculture to provide, money for snacks and meals for the kids. So take advantage of these other funding sources.
Yeah, absolutely. Vic, another question in the chat from Caitlin. This is a just wondering question. So, but do you foresee the funding formula changing on the cost per student to better reflect the need for increased wages?
Well, before we adjust the formula, we need to document how much folks are actually paying to come up with a state average. And then, to find out, are they taking advantage of these other funding sources? Are they, seeking partners in their community? Those are all factors that come into play before we can make a decision.
Okay.
Oh, and one more thing. If we decide to adjust that formula, that's going to reduce the number of grants we are able to award too. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Okay. Caitlin, I don't know if you're able to unmute, and I see that you put an okay, thank you in the chat, but if you have any other further questions, please feel free to unmute or drop those into the chat. So.
Yeah, that's all right. I just kind of had it pop in my head. We've always kind of had thoughts around that not being our actual cost for what we offer, and the ratios that we have, the cost per student has always been higher than the actual funding formula. But that, as Vic says, we look for ways to fund through other means. But with staff costs going up, that's the strategy that we're going to be taking, is increasing wages. So
yeah, absolutely.
An increase even more.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the feedback. Sorry about the coughing here today too. Great questions. Really appreciate your open and honest nature or answering those types of things. We don't have anything else on the agenda today, unless, of course, there's things that you guys want to talk through. Just again, that fun reminder that your directors' meetings are recorded. They can be found here. So if you ever need to go back and view view one from 2 months ago or whatever, that's fine. Vic, is there anything that you need to add that was not on the agenda today?
I think we've covered everything. And I want to thank everyone for your participation and your input. And I look forward to, a very productive school year, despite all the challenges we've had.
So Vic, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we probably won't have a call in December, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So folks, we do not have a meeting scheduled at this time for January, but look for that to be coming sometime in the month of December. We'll go ahead and do that. I'm sorry, I just saw a note from Billy here. So we've included a mini staff get together during lunch with the focus of professional development, STEM, literacy, SEL.
That's a good strategy.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, let us know how that's working, Billy. That seems like a really good thing. I see a double thumbs up even, so good.
I just wanted to mention something about our program director. She went to the Dollar Fresh. We're in a small town. We don't get a lot of the perks that a bigger city has from things, but we went to the local Dollar Fresh, and anything that's getting outdated on that date, that we are getting food like you would not believe, pizzas and cookies, and a lot of that stuff you can freeze and bring out later. We're even giving it to our elementary programs, but we found our attendance has gone up because if you feed them, they will come. So you feed them, they're there. I mean, extra food besides just the regular after school snack that the school provides. So just whatever.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And Beth, I apologize. I just saw your note in here about the school hiring people away from you too. I'm so sorry about that. So yeah, thanks for that tip. Anything else that people wanted to bring up today? Resources to share, thoughts on anything that we talked through?
Crystal, how about turning off the recording?
Okay, I will go ahead and do that. Give me 1 second. I do want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving before I do that, just on the record. And then we will get this posted later today, early next week, something of that nature. So if you need something, you can find it there. So let me go ahead and end the recording.